Welcome back to the deep dive. If you're building workflows or orchestrating business logic, or, and this is becoming the real differentiator, developing those complex agentic AI sequences, you're probably using NEN. Today, we're doing a massive deep dive into what is probably the biggest event in the low-code world right now, the upcoming launch of NEN version 2.0. We've got a whole stack of sources here, technical docs, lists of breaking changes, community announcements. Our mission is to really distill all of this, to turn it into a clear roadmap for you and explain what this huge shift means for your production environment.
And what's really fascinating is what this release signifies. Version 1.0 came out about 2 years ago, and it was all about, feature growth. Version 2.0 is completely different. It's about hardening the core of the platform.
Making more mature.
Exactly. More secure, way more reliable, and ready for those really high-volume enterprise workflows, especially, like you said, the heavy demands from AI agents. The platform is really growing up.
And before we get into all the, let's say, necessary homework that comes with a big version bump like this, let's start with the one feature that solves a universal pain point. They are finally delivering autosave.
Oh, thank goodness.
We can all stop hitting that save icon every 30 seconds.
It's such a simple quality of life thing, but it prevents so much heartache when your browser inevitably crashes. It's a perfect example of that focus on reliability.
Okay, let's put some dates on the calendar because this is all happening very, very fast. The schedule is tight. The beta version 2.0.0 is slated for early December. We're looking at around December 8th, 2025.
And the stable version, 2.0.x, follows almost right away. It's scheduled for mid-December around the 15th. For anyone running production workflows, this means you need to be testing that beta the second it drops. You need to be planning your migration right now.
You don't want to rush a major version bump.
Never, even one that's focused on improvements.
So what else are we getting on the front end? We've got autosave, which they say is coming shortly after the stable release, but they're also promising a pretty big refresh, an improved canvas, an updated sidebar, and they're hinting at a few other surprises.
The aesthetic refresh is nice, but the real work is going to be dealing with the breaking changes. And because this migration is basically mandatory for long-term support, they've introduced a really crucial tool for this, the migration report.
That's a huge safety net. So how do you find it? How do you use it?
It's been available for a while now, since version 1.12.1.0. You'll find it under Settings, and then Migration Report. It scans everything, your workflows, your configurations, and it flags exactly what's going to break in V2.
Okay, but there's a catch, right?
A very critical one. This report is only visible to global admins.
Wow.
So if you're a team manager but not the main administrator of the whole instance, you have to get that admin to run this report. They're the gatekeepers here.
And what about that buffer period? Is version 1 just gone overnight?
No, thankfully not. You get a 3-month runway after the stable 2.x release. During that window, version 1.x will still get updates, but, and this is key, it's strictly for critical bug and security fixes only.
So no new features?
0 new features for the 1.x branch. The clock starts ticking mid-December, and the message is pretty clear: migrate if you want to stay current.
All right, let's get into the technical weeds. The whole goal of these breaking changes, it seems, is to just purify the platform. Better security, better performance, simpler configs.
Exactly. It's about building a foundation that's robust enough for what's coming next. And the first, maybe the most significant change, is about isolation. Code isolation.
Okay, the code node.
Right. In the past, it was a little too easy for code in that node to sort of peek outside its sandbox and access that instance's environment variables. In V2, that's blocked by default. The n and block and access node variable is now set to true.
That feels like a massive security win. It stops accidental credential leaks if a workflow gets compromised. But what if an old workflow actually needs that access?
The official recommendation is to migrate that data into NAN's secure credential system. That's the proper secure way forward. But if you absolutely must have the old behavior during migration, you can explicitly set that variable to false. They're making you consciously opt into the risk.
Makes sense.
And on a related note, they're getting serious about the config files themselves, enforcing strict file permissions 0600.
So in plain English, what does 0600 mean for the listener?
Think of it like a private SSH key. It means only the user who owns the file can read or write it, no one else. It prevents other services or users on a shared server from messing with NEN's core settings. It just hardens the whole instance.
Okay, let's move from file isolation to execution isolation. Task runners in Python. This is huge for anyone doing machine learning or agentic AI stuff.
This is where V2 really future-proofs itself. Task runners, which run code in a separate secure process, are now on by default. This means all code node executions will run there.
Why the change?
Because the old pyodide-based Python node, which ran in a browser sandbox, is being completely removed. It just couldn't handle serious data science workloads.
So if I was running a simple Python script before, what happens now?
You have to use the new native Python implementation. It's way faster, more powerful. You can access real libraries. It's what you need for AI. But, and it's a big but, this native Python requires task runners to be in external mode, which means an infrastructure change for a lot of people.
And that ties directly into the Docker image, right?
Precisely. The main in Docker image will no longer ship with that external task runner included. You'll have to switch your setup to use the separate urns image. It's better for scaling and security, but it does mean you have to change your deployment.
And with this big push for security, some of the, let's say, riskier nodes are being locked away by default.
Yes. The execute command node and the local file trigger node are both disabled out of the box. Execute command is just too risky. It lets you run any command on the host machine. You can imagine what a rogue AI agent could do with that.
So what's the path forward if you actually need that power?
You have to go into your environment variables and explicitly remove them from the node X exclude list. You're making a conscious choice. They're also restricting file access to just the .data directory by default, and auth callbacks now require authentication. It's all about closing potential security holes.
Okay, that's a lot on the security front. Let's talk about a more subtle change that I know has caused a ton of headaches in V1, sub-workflows.
Ugh, yes. This is a subtle but absolutely critical fix. Think of a sub-workflow that has a wait node in it. Previously, the parent workflow would get back the input data that went into the waiting node.
Not the final result from the end of the sub-workflow.
Exactly. You'd get the raw groceries, not the cooked meal. It was a bug. In V2, that's fixed. The parent now correctly gets the output data from the very end of the child workflow. It just works as you'd expect now. But you might have to remove old workarounds.
And just a quick note on cleanup.
Right. A few nodes for retired services are being removed. Spontit, crowd.dev, and KiteMaker. Just some basic housekeeping.
All right, let's move on to data storage. For anyone running a self-hosted instance, this section is probably the most important. And maybe the most painful. Let's start with databases.
The big headline here is the official complete retirement of MySQL and MariaDB support. It was deprecated in V1, and now it's gone.
Wait, forcing everyone off MySQL?
Yeah.
That's a heavy lift, isn't it? Especially for people who built their whole infrastructure around it.
It is a heavy lift, but it was a non-negotiable step for them. There were just too many issues with transaction support and reliability in high concurrency environments. By standardizing on PostgreSQL and SQLite, they're ensuring a truly production-grade backend. If you're on MySQL, you must migrate your data before upgrading.
And what about SQL users? Is there any change there?
That's actually all good news. The old legacy driver is gone. The new default is a much faster, more reliable pooling driver that uses wall mode. We're talking up to 10 times faster in some cases. It makes SQLite a much more viable option for smaller setups.
And binary data storage is getting a similar overhaul.
Yes. The super unreliable in-memory binary data mode is just removed. Gone. It caused too many problems. Now, binary data-like files from a webhook will default to the file system or the database if you're in queue mode. You can also use S3. The core message is you can't rely on RAM to hold that data anymore. You need proper storage provisioned.
Okay, let's talk configuration cleanup. The sources mention an upgrade to the .env library. Sounds minor, but it could be a tripwire.
It's a huge tripwire. The parsing logic has changed. If your .env file has values with special characters like backticks, you now must wrap them in quotes. If you don't check this, your entire instance could fail to start, so definitely review your .env files.
We're also seeing some convenience features being removed.
That's right. The NANN tunnel command line option is gone. If you use that for local development, you'll need to switch to something like ngrok or local tunnel. They're also getting rid of a confusing environment variable for queues, queue worker max stalled count, to simplify things.
And finally, a CLI command removal that feels more like a safety feature.
Oh, it absolutely is. They removed the command to activate all workflows at once.
Update.workflow all act to true.
Yes, it prevents that nightmare scenario where someone accidentally runs a script and brings a whole production instance to its knees by activating hundreds of dormant workflows. It's a smart defensive design.
Okay, let's pull all these threads together. What does version 2.0 really mean? It isn't about a bunch of flashy new features, at least not right now. It's a maturity release. It's about hardening security, forcing production-grade infrastructure, and clearing out old debt. all to prepare for the future, especially for things like agentic AI.
And that leads to the really interesting philosophical question here. Now that these powerful but risky nodes are disabled by default, now that you're forced onto more complex infrastructure like external task runners, it changes the whole trade-off. You're getting a massive step up in security and auditability. But are you, as a developer or an organization, willing to give up some of that immediate developer convenience, that ability to just run any command instantly? That's the conversation every team needs to have now.
That is a phenomenal question, and we want to hear your thoughts on it. If you're an NHN user, please share your opinions in the comments or on the community forums. Are you excited about these changes? Are you dreading the MySQL migration? What's the biggest headache you're anticipating? Let us know. And if this deep dive helped you get a handle on these crucial V2.0 changes, please take a moment to hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, ring that notification bell, and please share this with your colleagues. Everyone needs to be prepared for this shift. Thank you for diving deep with us.